Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of the Morgan James Book Launch. And my name's Jim Howard. I'm the publisher for Morgan James, and I'm excited today to have our author, incredible author, Shona Elliott. And Shona is the author of Creating Value as a Senior Leader, Effective Strategies to Increase Engagement, Align with Your Employees, and Achieve Your Organization's Goals. So, Shona, thank you for taking the time today to talk with us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
We're excited to have you and excited about the book. And the title, I think, leads right into this first real question that I have. And that's, as a senior leader, how do we create value?
Yeah, for me, it's about authentically connecting with employees, which seems easy or simple. And as a senior leader, unfortunately, given all that is on our plates, it's not that easy. We're busy. We have many, maybe layers in the organization, depending on the size, and our ability to really understand what the working conditions are like and the perceptions of our employees as they do their incredible work, that's a bit distant to us. So unfortunately, we become somewhat disconnected. In my experience and in the research, when senior leaders can really find their way and connect with employees, listen to them, see what they're doing, kind of feel and observe their environments, their perspectives change. And as a result of that, decisions that they make look perhaps different than they would have otherwise. So for me, it's really around getting more plugged into your organizations. As hard as that may sound for a very busy executive, but the deeper they can get in, not intending to micromanage, but just to feel and observe, I feel that's where that value comes from. And from an employee perspective, them seeing their senior leaders and being more visible, and just even in that alone, beyond the town halls or the video blogs, them seeing them aside them, and in a virtual world that looks different for some organizations. For them, there's huge value in it to know who you are and to see you as being interested in their work as well.
Wow. And that's, such a great way to look at the reconnection and the building the personal spirit of an organization or a company by making sure that we're staying connected all the way through and not allowing our roles as a senior executive or senior leader take us too far away from the work that's being done and the day to day, and letting people see us in those roles, I think, is so important. And you map that out so beautifully in the book. So for people watching today, what are a few practical tips that senior leaders can do now to help with some of that, decrease retention and increase engagement?
Yeah. So what I share in my book and what has worked for me, and certainly may not work for all senior leaders, but I used to embark on what I called walking in the shoes of the employees. So I would every few months, sometimes more frequent than that, I would work a shift in an area, usually an area that had lower engagement or had some, problem issues, perhaps with a microculture. And so you would see me sometimes delivering food trays, answering IT tickets, not all that well sometimes. I have worked along environmental services workers and clean hospital rooms and bathrooms. I have worked the midnight shift in the emergency room alongside the nurses and the physicians there. It's basically wherever I felt there was a need, or sometimes people would ask for me to do so, I would find a way to walk in their shoes. If I could do the work, clean, bone chips up in the OR, I would do that. And what that did for me is, one, I walked away from each experience incredibly amazed and in awe of what the work of the team was doing. And they do that every day. And I was always inspired and really on point for my purpose as a leader to do all that I could to support them. And then I also built relationships I wouldn't have built otherwise, which was really important from a value perspective. And trust began to develop in different ways as well, because I would hear things like, oh my goodness, like someone was like, who made that decision? That'd be a question I would be asking. And ultimately, our senior team would have made that decision. And we made that decision disconnected from the reality. We did not have all the information on the table. And so then I would say, okay, well, obviously we have a little bit more thinking to do about perhaps that decision. I would, circle back with the team, reconsider our options. And if we made the change, the trust would be built that we actually cared listened to their feedback and actually did something with them. And then the times where we couldn't make the decision, then would still come back to those employees and say, listen, we couldn't make the decision that totally aligned with your feedback. Here's why. And perhaps this is another solution with respect to how we can handle that differently. And again, trust is built based on that because they've been heard and ideas considered and the communication back one way or the other. So for me, that was something that I felt worked well for me. It does not have to be as a big of an undertaking as doing a shift a month or what have you. And there are many ways that senior leaders can find what works for them and what they're comfortable with becoming plugged in. And it could be, walking around, depending if you're in office or you have a plant or manufacturer, you can walk around and do leadership by walking around and asking questions. And in a virtual world, that becomes a little bit more challenging, given we're still here in COVID, and it is finding ways to attend meetings you wouldn't have attended otherwise virtually.
Yeah.
And that gets a little tricky in terms of your intention of attending and figuring out where you want to spend your time. And there are ways by having those conversations to say, listen, I am trying to get a deeper perspective of what you're dealing with, all day, every day. And where would you recommend me show up virtually? Or what meetings do I need to attend so I can better experience it? Not to judge, not to be looking at the quality of the discussion of the meetings, but really to experience what you experience all day.
Mm. And I think that's so powerful, especially right now with the environment that we're starting. Looks like we're starting to come out of with COVID,
Hopefully.
but you know, as you and I talked about even before we started this conversation, that some of the adjustments and changes that we've seen in COVID are not necessarily going to go away. So I think this virtual communication, these virtual workspaces, some of that may continue with some of the major corporations and bigger companies. And I think people who are watching this or reading your book are going to need to understand and figure out ways to interact. One of the things that we did through COVID was we took a time a month and pulled our whole team together in a virtual conference call. And when David Hancock, who's the CEO and founder of Morgan James, myself, some of their senior leaders, when we showed up to that call, we purposely did it dressed down, casual, t-shirts, jeans, ball cap. And if the first one, it was a little interesting because the team didn't know what to expect. So some were dressed up and some weren't. But by the end of it, what we were trying to show them was it's okay. You're in a home office, be comfortable, be you right now, take care of yourself. You'll do a better job because of it. They saw us in that environment. And we think it pulled down those barriers a little bit and let us come together as a team to know that we're all in this together. So things like that, I think, are prime examples of some of the things that you share in your book of how you can do this as a senior leader to bring that relationship closer together and really get your whole team, employees on every level, engaged to see how they make a difference in the company. So that brings me to maybe another question, which is, as a senior leader, how can you align with employees to the point that you achieve the organization's goals?
Yeah, it's a great question. Strategic planning or business planning looks a little bit different with COVID. The traditional 3 to 5 or 5 to 10 year like windows of planning, those have kind of at least been put on hold for the moment. So, in doing some strategic planning facilitation with organizations, I've noticed we're really scaling back the window of time. And as we scale back, the question is, all right, how do we take a look at our current state as we build out a SWOT analysis or environmental scan? And how do we plug in employee voice? And so as we start to consider our future, we have to build it with the realities of what our employees are experiencing and thinking. And so building in those processes through a variety of different mechanisms to get employee voice, employee perspective into the building documents of your strategy is one of the single best ways to align with your employees to achieve your goals. If it's the pre-COVID approach, not all organizations did this, but a number would plan in a boardroom or on a retreat offsite, and it would be the senior leaders or the board without really, getting any input from their employees. And with COVID specifically, given things have changed so fast and senior leaders are not necessarily understanding where employees are at in all of it, taking the time to build in employee feedback and employee perspective into their planning processes will be essential. One, they want to be part of their future. Anything that impacts them and the success of their organization, they want to be a part of the design of that. And so senior leaders consider that they are wanting to do that and find their ways to include employee voice in it. I know organizations that have actually had employees attend their planning retreats, and those have created some very innovative strategic plans. Then employees know that they're part of the process and that alignment happens organically. Passed away in a boardroom isolated, then you're really trying to build communications, plans and strategies to have, employees understand what the plan is versus they're part of the creation and they already have some input and have some ideas to where you're headed.
And getting buy-in is so important from every person on the team. Letting them know that they're valued and they're important to it. You're going to get a better job from them. They're going to do more to support everyone else on the team. And it really does truly become that team effort to achieve that common goal, which is where success is found. So that is beautiful. So, Shona, you shared so much today just in this short period of time, but I know in the book there's an awful lot more. So I encourage everyone out there to get a copy of Shona's book if you haven't already. It's available everywhere you would buy books, online or offline. So make sure you go look at Creating Value as a Senior Leader and get your copy, because it can definitely help you get some ideas. And it doesn't matter if you're the CEO of the company, if you're a senior executive, or if you're an employee, or maybe you're an entrepreneur of a small business who has a number of employees and you're growing. There's never a wrong time to pick this up and get into the conversation. And right now, I think is a perfect time with all the adjustments and changes we've seen. It's a perfect opportunity for you to see how you can benefit your company by getting insight that someone can share. And Shona shares so much value in these books. So I encourage all of you to pick that up. But Shona, if people are watching the video today, if they're hearing our interview, if they're maybe they have a copy of the book already, or they're waiting on receiving their copy, what's the best way for them to connect with you, to get more information, to find out more about what you're doing?
Mhm. Very active on LinkedIn. So if you just type in Shona Elliott, you'll be able to find me on LinkedIn and you can DM me there. Also, my website at shonaelliott.org. There's opportunities to reach out and to connect with me on a Zoom call or have a call or whatever is most convenient for you.
Outstanding. Well, Shona, thank you for taking the time to one, write the book. I truly mean that. I think authors who share their experience and their journeys to help other people grow their company, gain insight and wisdom, and find success of their own. It's one of the most important things that any of us can do, and few do it. And you did it. And thank you for letting us, play a part in your journey, and more importantly, for sharing today and letting our authors know what they can expect when they read your book.
Right. Oh, thank you. Thanks to Morgan James. You've been an incredible partner. I'm very appreciative and I really appreciate our time today.
Absolutely. And everyone watching, again, go get a copy of Shona's book. It's available everywhere you would buy books and should be available right now. So grab your copy, and we look forward to seeing you on our next one.
Right. Thank you.